Hi, I'm Tom Elliot and this is another financial markets update for Hodges Real Estate. Well, there is a very interesting tussle going on at the moment at the Reserve Bank of Australia. Now, normally the job of monetary policy is to try and keep inflation in check. And on that basis, you'd have to say the Reserve Bank has got a bit of a battle on its hands. The most recent inflation numbers that came out for the December quarter showed quarter inflation was around about 0.8%, but the real concern is what year-on-year inflation now looks like. It's 2.7 to 2.8%, and of course that is uncomfortably close to the upper 3% band that the Reserve Bank does not want to see consumer prices ticking through. So what should the Reserve Bank do? Well, normally they would increase interest rates. That is one surefire way to reduce economic activity and hopefully put the lid on inflation. Unfortunately, at the moment, the Reserve Bank also wants to see the Australian dollar fall further. Now, as we speak, the Australian dollar has fallen to a 3.5-year low. It's well below 90 cents. In fact, in recent trading, it's traded as low as just 87.3 US cents, a far cry from the $1.11 it traded at within the last couple of years. However, the Reserve Bank wants to see the $1 go even lower. My guess is to between 80 and 85 cents. As a result, it has to keep interest rates on hold. So what does the Reserve Bank do? Does it put up rates to try and combat the rising inflation that we're seeing, or does it cut them to reduce the $1? My prediction is the Reserve Bank will do absolutely nothing for the time being, leave interest rates on hold at 2.5%. Having said that, you can start seeing the fixed rates starting to trend up in the interest rate markets, and again, that is a sign that eventually inflation will have to be kept in check and interest rates will go up. Okay, well, having a look around the world, the Chinese economy is still growing reasonably well, between 7 and 7.5% annualised. That's, as always, good news for Australia, but we need to remember we don't really have a plan B when it comes to China. People just say, oh, well, China will grow and therefore Australia will be all right. Well, what happens when the evil day comes and China stops growing at this rate? It hasn't come yet. It doesn't look like it will come anytime in the near future, but really we should think beyond the near term and look a few years out, and who knows what might happen then. Anyway, there is nervousness about the Chinese economy, there's no doubt about that, and that also is one of the reasons that the $1 has fallen, because the $1 is one of the 6th most traded currencies in the world. In fact, it is the 6th most traded, is a proxy for what is happening in China, because we are seen as beneficiaries of Chinese growth. So nervousness in China or about China equals a lower Australian dollar. Good news about the American economy, it's definitely showing signs of improvement. Job figures are growing, unemployment is falling. Economic growth in America is actually last recorded at 3.6%. Here in Australia it's only 2.5%, so the American economy is taking back off again with a vengeance. So that's very good news, and another reason as to why the US dollar in the medium term probably should rise against other currencies. Bad news, of course, if you want to travel to America or buy goods on the internet from America or anything else, but it is good for our economy if the American economy grows and the Australian dollar falls. The federal government, turning to the Australian economy, has a real problem on its hands, and it is, of course, the budget deficit. Now, just a few months ago, we saw the Treasurer take the unprecedented step of trying to lift the total debt ceiling here in Australia to $500 billion, $500 billion. And he was roundly condemned by both the Labor Party and many sections of the media, of which I'm one, saying, well, wait a minute, you're the party that's supposed to cut debt, not increase it. Here you are arguing for an increase. The reason Joe Hockey has got the increase and wants the increase and needs the increase is because there are worse times ahead for government finances. Tax receipts are falling. The cost of many welfare programs, the dole, social security, etc. are going up quite dramatically. Healthcare costs are spiralling through the roof. And right now, the federal government doesn't know exactly what to do. We've got, of course, the first federal budget that Joe Hockey will present coming up in about 3.5 months' time. My prediction is it will be a shocker. And by a shocker, the deficit will have grown, spending programs will have to be cut, and who knows, we might even get some tax increases. But overall, it's going to be a very, very difficult budget. Having said that, that's exactly the sort of budget that a first-term government does in its first year. You try and get all the really bad news out of the way early. So I'm afraid that's what Joe Hockey's going to do. So what does all this mean for the property market? I mean, as I said, there are good and bad signs out there. There's a bit of inflation going on. The Chinese economy may or may not keep growing at its previous rate. The US economy is improving, but locally our economy is slowing down. Our federal budget deficit just appears to be going up and up and up. What do you do if you're a property investor? Well, recent history tells us that the Melbourne market had an excellent year last year, up around 10%, depending of course which suburb and what type of house or unit you've invested in, but 10% is very healthy year-on-year price growth. Up in Sydney, they did even better, with growth of between 14 and 16%, depending on which measure of residential prices you look at. So Melbourne residential property had a good year, and so it should have. Interest rates were low, the population of our city has kept growing, and when you put those things together and you don't have an explosion in unemployment, that usually means property prices grow up. 2014 is going to be harder to pick than 2013. I was very confident that 2013 would be a good year. As I said before, I think interest rates have bottomed. Having said that, the lower Australian dollar is excellent for our property market because it means that foreign buyers, primarily from places like China, have more bang for their buck, if you like, and we're certainly seeing that in places like Baldwin and Box Hill, where Chinese buyers seem to really prefer property, plus of course in the inner city apartment market. So the lower dollar is good for property. Interest rates I think will stay low for quite a while, but there are signs in the fixed rate market that they're going to trend up fairly soon. So again, and I've said this before, I would be locking in debt. But overall, neither the federal government nor the state government here in Victoria shows any signs of cutting back on immigration anytime soon, even though it's normally a political hot button issue. So overall, I think we're in for another good year for residential property in Melbourne. Maybe not as great as last year, where property prices went up 10%, but certainly the low to mid single digits is very, very achievable for the Melbourne market. Okay, that's all from me for now. I'm Tom Elliot, and it's been another Financial Markets Update for Hodges Real Estate.